This is Building Lifestyles, a show designed to help everyday Australians create a lifestyle that inspires them using property development strategies. On the show, you'll hear from everyday people changing their lives doing property development. You'll learn from their successes as well as some of the challenges they've faced along the way. We also talk to experts from a range of fields who share specialised techniques that you can use to accelerate your property journey. I'm your host, Amanda McEwin, and I'm the founder of the Rising Star Developer. And I'm really passionate about helping everyday Australians build lifestyle using property development. Today we have an incredible guest, Kevin Bees, Australia's leading profit maximisation expert and founder of Profit Hive. With over 20 years of experience working in global brands like Airbus, Intel and Qantas, Kevin has helped business owners maximise profits, optimise cash flow and build thriving lifestyles. In this episode, Kevin shares the secrets to financial success, how to leverage AI for business growth, and the mindset shifts needed to create true wealth and freedom. Plus, he'll reveal the number one question that can change your life forever. So get ready to learn how to build profitable businesses, reclaim your time, and design a lifestyle that you love. Let's dive in. Welcome, Kevin, to Building Lifestyles. For our listeners, tell us a bit about your background and what you do.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here with you. Now, I get to work as Australia's leading profit maximisation expert, which means I get to spend my time working with business owners and business leaders, helping them to make more profitability in their business, but also more importantly, to have more fulfillment in their life. I met so many business owners along the way who seem to get burnt out by their business. You know, they lose their health, they lose their relationships. And I don't think business should be that way. I think if we do it right, we can have the financial success and enjoy life in the way that we want to.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And that's particularly important when even if you are an employee, similar philosophies apply. And even if you're starting a new business like property development, or if you have your own business, a lot of these key concepts can apply across the board, regardless of whether you're a business owner or not. And most people who are starting property development, they're actually creating like a little side hustle on the side. So effectively, it's a business as well. So you do need to be thinking about how to maximize profits for your deals, but also for your business, and also how to manage cash flow, which is such an important part of running a business. So let's get into a morning ritual success, because I think how you set yourself up for the day is so important. Like, I really value my morning ritual as well, just to set me up for the day. Can you share the life-changing questions that you recommend asking every morning to set the tone for a successful day?
Yeah, I love it. You sound like you pack a lot into your mornings, Amanda. That's amazing. So for me, there's a question that comes from a book I read many years ago, and I'd highly recommend it. It's a book called The One Thing by Keller and Papsan. And they ask this question there, which I think you can ask every day, you can ask every week. They say, the question is, what's the one thing that you can do today that by doing it, everything else would seem easier or unnecessary? And I really love that question, because when you think about that in that day, it's not then you're not just thinking, oh, what have I got to do? It's like, well, what's the thing that's going to make everything else easier? And for me this morning, I'm thinking about an event I've got coming up this week, and there's so many people I need to get back to and message, and something's not firing right in the CRM, and there's a lot to think about in that. Well, what's the one thing that's going to make this seem easier? Well, actually, I just need to take time to explain what needs to happen to my team, and they'll handle all of that for me. So actually this morning, that's gone off my plate. They're going to take care of it. And then my brain is free to come in here and be of service, because this is also the one thing today that's going to make the biggest difference. I get to be of service, help some people. And that's really what I do.
Yeah, I love that question. I've never really thought about it from that perspective, because we can get so caught up in our busy to-do lists, which seem to be forever growing, especially if you're a business owner or, running a business and got a side hustle and juggling family as well, which most people do. And I think, to be able to ask that question and rise yourself above your to-do list, I can imagine it gives you a lot more clarity around really what is important and what you need to be focusing your very scarce resource, which is your time, to do something to really set yourself up for the day. So I love that question.
And can I jump in there? Let me add something else to that, because you hit the nail on the head. What's important? A lot of us get distracted by what's urgent, and we're focusing on something because it's urgent. But no, we need to put our energy into what's important. There's this great video by Stephen Covey on this. I'm not sure if you've ever seen it, and it's called Big Rocks First. You can probably find it on YouTube. And he does this great demonstration. He fills up like this glass jar, and with lots of tiny little pebbles. And then he gets a participant out of the audience to come and put in their big rocks. And like, this is the important thing. So this is like, hey, time for my health, time for my relationships, time for, working on my business and my finances. But of course, there's so many of these little pebbles in there, like these unimportant things, they can't fit the big rocks in. And it's like, well, that's a problem. That's what happens for most people in their life. But in this demonstration, it is really valuable because he empties the bucket out and says, do it again. And when the lady puts all the big rocks in first, all the important things and prioritizes those first, then guess what? She can then pour in all those little pebbles and they all fit, that everything would fit in there if we do the big things first, the important things first. So I'm sorry I jumped in when you're about to do your next thing, but I think you really made a valid point. I want to emphasize it. Important. What is the most important thing?
No, that's so true. And that's something that I every year I do like a life planning session with my inner circle community and with my community. And I run through that very concept, because when we're planning out our year, it is so important to make sure that we do focus on those big rocks, because you're right, you put the sand or the water in and you can't fit the things that are really important to you in life. So that's definitely a key philosophy that I use in my day-to-day life and my business planning as well. But it's always a good reminder. And just going on from that, I guess, to take that to the next level. And there's a video, and I'm sure you've probably seen it as well, which is sort of leading us down the goal setting path as well. But it sort of follows on from the life-changing question that you just asked. And it's a video from Oprah Winfrey, and it was about vision. And it was a really simple question. Have you ever seen this video? It's really powerful on YouTube. She said there's one question, and if you can find the answer to that question, it will give you clarity like no other. And it's such a simple question. The question is, what do you want, or what do I want? It's such a simple question, but it's so powerful, because I think in our busy lives, we're running 100 miles an hour, juggling all these multiple balls, and quite often we can actually forget, what is it that we actually want, and what are we striving for? Why are we working so hard? Why do we want to create wealth in our business? Why do we want to create wealth in property development or whatever it is? Why are we doing that? And what is it that you really, really want? Because when you have clarity about what you want, then you can start choosing the big rocks to make sure that they fit into your priorities. And then when you're trying to prioritize your day by asking the question you asked before about, what's the one thing that I can do today that's going to have the biggest impact? And when I talk to my community, we're doing accountability. I always say, okay, what are the three things that are going to turn the needle in the direction that is going to have the biggest impact in your life? But it all starts with really understanding, what is it that you want? And it's such a simple question. But the crazy thing is, when I have these conversations with a lot of people don't even really know the answer to what do they want. Because if you don't know what you want, how do you know what those big rocks are to prioritize? And then how do you know which direction to focus your very limited time and energy on? Because it'd almost be like a rudderless ship going along in the waves, being moved by everybody else's focuses and goals, and not your own. And I think that's a really powerful question for everybody to be asking themselves as well.
There's a really great scene in Alice in Wonderland, and she's asking, I think it's the cat, which direction she should go. And the cat says, well, that depends. Where do you want to end up? And she says, well, I don't really know where I want to end up. And then he says, well, in which case it doesn't really matter which direction you go. And I think that's really to your point. If we don't get clear and decide on that, then, we can get washed around like that ship in the ocean. Any wind is going to take us anywhere. You kind of mentioned about the mindset. I think there's really people need to define for themselves what success is, because some people think success is this thing in the future that they're going to get to and that they're going to arrive at, and they get there and that's not it. Then there's something else and something else and something else, and they never really truly experience success. But I think in the beginning, we need to define what is success for us. And one of my favorite definitions of this comes from Earl Nightingale, and he says that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Now, the important thing about this, the worthy ideal, is this vision, this goal that Amanda was mentioning just now. What's the important thing? Where do you want to end up? That's the worthy ideal. But the progressive realization is like, hey, we're making a step by step. We're progressing. It may take me 5 years, 10 years, 20 years to get to this goal or this vision, but am I doing something today, every day, or this week to get me there? If I feel like I'm progressing and moving towards that, then I'm success. So from that perspective, you can then begin to see success as being a journey, and you can actually you can get success every single day by moving towards that vision.
Yeah, and that is amazing. And it's interesting because I got interviewed recently, and I was asked, what does success look like to me? And I really connect with, you may have heard of this as well, Ralph Waldo Emerson's definition of success. Have you heard of that?
I've heard Ralph Waldo Emerson. What's the quote? I'm excited to
Okay,
hear.
let me read it to you. So, and it really captures my view of success. So, it's to laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and to endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, and to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know that even one life has breathed easier because you have lived, this is to have succeeded.
I love it. That's I mean, it's great. There's so much power in that, isn't there? If you
Yeah.
make a difference to one other person today to a week, then hey, you really really served your purpose of being here. Beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's so beautiful. I remember when I first heard that, I went, oh my God, that just captures how I feel about success. Because quite often when we're doing our goal setting and our planning, and a lot of success tends to be driven by financial metrics. But then you've got to dig a bit deeper, because when you hit your financial metrics, and I've been in a fortunate position that property development has enabled me to hit my financial metrics, it's never about the money. Like even when I bank a project and get a big fat payday, it's never about the money. It's what the money enables. To have control over my time and to be able to help others to take the financial stress off their shoulders, that is worth so much more than money. I think it's really important. The more we keep talking about this different definition of success than the traditional financial measure of success, I think that's when you'll dig a bit deeper than a financial metric in terms of what gives us that success, and also our sense of purpose as well.
Yeah, purpose and fulfillment. I think it's really key, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be the person with the most money in the bank account, but then actually really not enjoyed any of your life,
Yeah.
and done the opposite to what your quote is, which is, blow up all of your relationships, destroy your health. That's not the
Yeah.
position. You don't want to have the most money in the bank and experience those things.
No, absolutely not. So let's get into some mindset shifts. I know this is really an area of your expertise. So what key mindset shifts separate those struggling from those who create long-term wealth and lifestyle freedom?
Yeah, awesome. Hey, and to summarize everything we said so far, I think the answer is probably encapsulated in that. Get a very big, clear vision of where you want to go. What do you really want? Take consistent action on it. Move towards it, on a daily basis. Make sure you're always taking the steps to get there. And then importantly, the idea, and I got this when I worked with Tony Robbins. He said to me, Kevin, success leaves clues. And I kind of like that. It's true, because if someone else is already having a result in the area that you want, then, well, why trial and error? Go and speak to them, go and find out. And same is what you do with your students, Amanda. They can go and try and figure this stuff out themselves, take themselves 10, 15 years to get the recipe, or come and get, your, decade, 2 decades of experience and all the people you helped, and get there faster. So I think finding a mentor, someone who's already done what you need to do, can really shorten the learning curve. I think when you talk about mindset, I've had the privilege of being around a lot of very successful business owners and business leaders. And I think the way we think about things is really critical. I had Jim Penman, I was speaking with him on my podcast, and he just happened to say somewhere in the conversation something like, hey, Kevin, there's opportunity everywhere. You just need to bend down and pick it up. Now, for those of you who may not know who Jim Penman is, he owns one of the largest franchise systems in Australia and maybe globally. I mean, that business is doing something like $500 million a year. And that's his belief. There's opportunities everywhere. You just need to bend down and pick it up. This is a guy who starts off mowing people's lawns, and now he has franchises for building inspections, pest control, dog grooming. I think even recently I saw him do beauty, right? And it's like, hey, well, if that was your belief, would you start to see more opportunity? Would you start to take more action? I hear people have the opposite belief of that. They tell me that, it's hard and it's difficult. And guess what? They find it to be hard and difficult. So yeah, having that belief and filtering your worldview through that, like there's opportunity, then you're going to find more opportunity.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's amazing. Um, and you mentioned a point around consistency, and I think it's such a simple word, but if I look at all of the members that have been that I've had the pleasure of being able to support inside of my Inner Circle program, it hasn't been those who have had the most money. It hasn't been those who have been the smartest that have done well. It's been those who have consistently shown up and consistently kept going are the ones that have had the most success. And I think that's really important for especially people who are starting out in any sort of wealth creation journey, whether it's business or a new health kick or whatever it is. There's never going to be a perfect time. There's never going to be a perfect market. You just got to start, and then you just got to be consistent. And if you keep being consistent and keep showing up, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when.
So true. I chuckled to myself the other day. I was in the gym in January. I couldn't move. There was no spaces. Every bit of machine was taken. February, I had the whole place to myself. And I was like, wow, isn't that interesting? So you have a higher chance of success if you do keep showing up. And the reason people don't typically show up is they don't have the right self-talk, Amanda. I see more and more business owners who buy into the belief that it's possible. They keep going. The business owners who get that negative self-talk and the chatter, I can't do it, it's too hard, well, they find a way to talk themselves out of it. So we've got to be very, very diligent on what beliefs we listen to, what of our self-talk we buy into. Okay. And here's the reality. And I had this realization, this epiphany one day when I worked with some very senior executives. I had one day the Admiral of the US Navy on my call. Now, this is a guy who, reported to two US presidents and, pretty much was head of the Navy. And he said something interesting. He was retiring and he was looking for his next opportunity. And he said he wasn't sure he was good enough. And I'm like, wow, isn't that amazing? We got someone who's a leader, a world leader, and he still has doubts that he's not good enough. And it kind of leveled the playing field, because I mean, we all think that. Sometimes we feel like we're the only ones who feel like we're not good enough or we're never going to get there. But everyone else does. Everyone else has that. But the only difference is, how long do we buy into that for? How long do we let that stop us taking action? That gentleman in particular, very successful. He went on, had a very successful, successful career after the Navy as well. But he chose to hear that thought and then not attach himself to it. He knew he could take more action. So yeah, just really let's be very vigilant on what are the thoughts that we're letting run through our heads, and let's work out which ones we buy into and which ones we don't.
Yeah, and there's a book that I've read. I'm not sure if you've ever read it, called The Untethered Soul. Have you ever heard of that
Blair,
book?
is it Singer? Michael Singer.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great book.
And I remember reading that years ago. And one of the key messages that I love from that book is about the crazy flatmate in your head. And if you were to speak to somebody else about the thoughts that you have in your head, and speak it out loud to somebody, or somebody would actually just speak to you about the thoughts that go in your head, the crazy flatmate in your head. And it's about trying to manage that and contain that crazy flatmate so it doesn't actually take over your whole life, because the real estate between your ears is the most valuable real estate that you own.
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is. Yeah, kick that crazy flatmate out. I think that's the important piece. People feel as though that we are our thoughts, but
Yeah.
we're not. We can choose to observe them. We can have that thought and then just let it pass on by. It's only when we choose to attach it. What happens, Amanda, is that prior to the age of 7, we make a decision about who we are. And then we fear that people aren't going to like us, aren't going to judge us. So we spend a whole grown-up life after that age trying to do things to prove that we're not that we fear. Now, the interesting thing is, if you work with an expert who can help you see that and understand that, well, you can unpick it. When you made those decisions at age 7 or younger about who you are, you didn't have the resources that you have today. So if we go back and investigate that and look at what those beliefs are and those patterns are, we can shift them and change them, and things become a lot easier. People go from, once we shift and change those beliefs, they go from like things being a struggle and a slog to actually having things come to them much quicker than they ever imagined. Because right now, a lot of the resistance to them achieving what they want isn't because of the strategy, it's because of their own psychology, which is, holding them back from taking the action that they need.
Regardless of how successful, and you've managed to speak to a lot of incredibly successful people in your journey, and you're one of Tony Robbins' coaches many years, so being able to have that time with him as well and being able to see his brain, and even I know myself, like everyone has self-doubts and everyone has the imposter syndrome, and everyone thinks, oh gosh, I'm a bit nervous about this. Am I good enough to be able to do this? Who am I to be able to be educating hundreds and thousands of people about property development? But that's so you've got to have that control over your real estate between your ears and contain that crazy flatmate to go, you know what? It's actually not about me. It's about how can I help other people be of service to other people. And I find when you take that dynamic away from your self-focus, which is really easy to do, we're so critical of ourselves. But if you take it away from yourself and actually then start thinking about other people, it can be a huge shift. And I see that with a lot of members as well, when they get out of their own head and start thinking, okay, well, I want to create housing for other people, for first home buyers to get in there. When they start actually thinking, okay, I'm going to create something that's pretty special for somebody else, I start to see that shift about, oh, who am I to be a property developer? I can't find a property deal. I can't do this. I don't have enough money. I'm not, a property magnate, to suddenly going, you know what? I can actually do this. I can do this. All I need to do is get a simple block and put 2 houses on there, and I'm now creating housing for other people. It's just a simple mindset shift.
Great mindset shift. What a change that is, because then no doubt that feels more fulfilling, because you're actually doing something to make a difference to others. That's powerful.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. Now, I've covered a lot of mindset stuff. So let's get into some business stuff, which is equally important as well. So, because once you get the mindset shift right, then you need to be able to work on the business part as well. So let's get into sort of a bit of profit and wealth building. So what are the biggest mistakes that you see that business owners make that stop them from maximizing profits? And what can they do to fix that?
Yeah, perfect. We could talk for like a whole day on this topic, or a whole week maybe. There's a lot of different things. If I was to boil them down to 7 key areas, they would be as follows. And actually, Amanda, if it helps, I have a report on this that I put some of the best ideas and thinking into. We won't get through all of the points in that today, but if people wanted to access that, they can get it for free at profit.gifts, as in my gift to you, GIFTS. And it will talk you through these 7 major profit leaks, but it also shares 125 different ways that you can implement these, for free to improve them. Now, number 1, the biggest profit leak for a lot of businesses is leads. They don't have a consistent mechanism to get enough leads into their business, right? Or if they are getting leads, they're not necessarily the quality, they're not qualified people that they really need. So we need to have a mechanism to make sure you can generate enough leads. Now, let's presume that you have that firing. The next piece is we need to be very good at conversion. A lot of people get these, a lot of business owners get these opportunities in front of them, but then they actually don't convert them into being a client. And I'll give you an example of this. I had a gentleman who was making and installing kitchens. And now if he went out to do the sales, he would convert 80% of the prospects, but his sales team were converting 15% of the profit of the prospects. So we did some work with them, and in this book I've just shared with you, we picked out 3 of the 24 strategies in there. We helped them get more rapport with people. We helped them, put a guarantee in place, a risk reversal, and we gave them like some good, material to use. They're over a period of 6 months, their sales conversion over doubled. Right, actually, they went from 15% to being at 40%, so it was way more than double. Now, that doubles the revenue of your business, just focusing on that one thing, that one small area. We gave them some training, some support, and it doubled. So if you get good leads, get good conversion. The next one is average dollar sale. A lot of business owners aren't actually offering, enough, high enough value on their first purchase or their first item. I'll give you an example. One of my clients, he sells a lot of IT services, and he has this whole array of things he can do for people, right? Some of these are enterprise level clients, large blue chip, banks, etc. He could be offering them like millions of dollars worth of services in his first proposal, but typically he was offering something under 100K. Now, guess what? If that's all you offer, that's all you're going to sell. So the shift that we made is we started packaging up, here are all of the things you can buy from us. And guess what? Now they're starting to buy the 7-figure stuff and the 6-figure stuff. And now he's getting more profit. They're paying him for these services annually in advance, sometimes 2 years in advance. So his bank, his cash flow is in a great position, and he's selling things at higher price. So that's the first 3. So if we get enough leads, we can convert them, and we increase the average dollar sale and what people are spending with us. Then we need to get these clients to be purchasing more frequently. I had an example here of someone doing it very badly. We had my focus on my business is to be serving here. I don't want to be outside, mowing my lawn, so I get someone to come and do that. Guy comes around, he cuts the lawn, and I was like, well, is he going to ask to come back again? Like, he could come back every 2 weeks, minimum every 2 weeks. He could probably come weekly in the summer, but every 2 weeks he could come back. He could 26 times his revenue if he just asked that question. Hey, Kevin, would you like me to come back every week, every fortnight? So every fortnight, if you come back every fortnight, and he would have 26 times his revenue, but he never did, right? And it's like, well, it's a simple thing. Why aren't we asking our existing clients, can we come back more frequently? Can we purchase more often? Sometimes we're letting go of existing clients and focusing on getting new ones. It's so much more cost effective to work with the existing clients than it is to go and market and buy new ones. So what are we doing to keep these people coming back on a more frequent basis? I'll give you another quick example on that. I had a client, lawyers, they had patents coming up. for renewal, and trademarks come up for renewal, and they were terrible at reminding people. So we put in just an automated system to remind people. People can automatically click the link, pay, done. They ended up making more money in the first 3 months of the year than did in the whole previous year, just because they got that simple thing in place. So that's the first four. I'll probably go through the others quite quickly. So the fifth one is expenses. How well are you managing your expenses? And particularly in what you're doing, critical. If you don't manage your expenses, you're going to eat away all the profit. So ask yourself a question: is this really necessary? Is this expense really necessary? Okay, and there's a heap of ways we can manage expenses. The next two then are time. If we manage our time effectively, we can get more deals done in a year. So are you managing your time effectively? Are you getting deals done as fast as you can? And then the final one is cash. Cash isn't really profit, but if we use our cash in the right way, then we can go and do more deals, right? So we can either try and spend all of our money on this deal, or we could maybe borrow other people's money, and maybe it allows us to do multiple deals. So cash being the seventh thing. So there's 7 key areas. Yeah, you go read them in the book, and it will take you 15-20 minutes to get through the book. And there's a lot of profit upside potential for all of you.
Amazing. And we'll also put the link to that book in the show notes as well. And a lot of those concepts can also be easily tailored to whether it's business or even in property development. Like the leads can be transferred into how you are searching for deals. Like, have you got a deal funnel where you can actually have deals coming into your inbox rather than having to go out and search for them? And there's a number of strategies that I teach how to do that. And then the conversion: are you putting multiple offers on different deals at any one point in time? And then in terms of other cash flow strategies, when you've got a deal and your financial capacity is tied up, you could actually be doing project management for other people as well and creating cash flow that way as well. So there's so many ways of making money in property and in business once you actually understand the key fundamentals of how to try and build that profit and maximize it. So let's get into AI, because this seems to be that's the biggest hot topic at the moment, AI and automation. So how can listeners use AI and automation to reduce their workload while increasing their income and freedom? And we could also spend another whole day on this topic as well. But if there's a couple of few quick wins that we can share with the listeners, that would be amazing.
Yeah, 100%. So, the interesting thing is, Amanda, I'm running a presentation on this week, and actually, I don't know if this podcast will be out in time, but if not, people are welcome to get the recording. As I'm updating this presentation, I did a similar presentation 3 months ago, and I went to a website called There's an AI for That, right? And this lists out all the different AI tools that there are. And so 3 months ago, I noted that there were 17,000 different AI tools available to us. When I went back now, 90 days later, there's over 30,000 AI tools that are available for us. Right? So it's growing so rapidly and so quickly. And I think the pace of that's going to pick up, and there's just going to be more and more. So the problem that appears for people doing, property or business, the challenge is it's so overwhelming. And as a result of that, people are so overwhelmed, they kind of just check out, they avoid it, and they're standing away. So my encouragement is for you to not do that. So make sure you lean into it, because this thing's not going away. There's 2 types of change in the world. There's structural change or cyclical change. Now, cyclical change, we kind of see, it's like the seasons coming and going, is like, periods where the market's in boom and the periods in markets in bust. We know that we go through these cycles. They're just going to come around again. But then the structural change. Structural change is when something happens and it's never going back, like the cat's out of the bag. So when we got the internet, people were denying it and avoiding it, thinking, oh, it's a fad, it will go away. Well, it's not. It's here. It's staying. Right? And guess what? AI is here, is staying. I think crypto is probably the same thing. Digital currency is here, is staying. So we need to lean into these things, and we need to start looking at them now. I think there's a bazillion tools that I can go through with you on this. I wonder what's the best ones for the listeners. Which area do you think is an area where people most struggle, Amanda, in relation to property?
I think probably when it comes to finding deals, but it can also be a tool around something that's going to help them give back time. So that can be like if you think about your day-to-day life, trying to make the most of our available time. So things that take us time, whether that's even using ChatGPT, or if there's a tool out there that can try and help people do things quicker from a personal perspective, anything like that.
Yeah, awesome. Look, I think from a time perspective, you hit the nail on the head with ChatGPT, and I don't think people are using that tool in the way that they really could. And if you haven't got it on your phone, get it on your phone and set it up so that you can actually have voice conversations with it. A lot of people just try and type into it, but you can have some really meaningful conversations with it. I was driving the other day and I needed to think through some things, and it just became, I asked it, I gave it some clear instructions. You're a leading expert in XYZ, the topic I was talking about. You're going to guide me through this, you're going to coach me through this process. So by the end of my drive, I actually had a clear plan mapped out and it was there. So put it on your phone, have it as a coach or an advisor for you, and it can advise you in a very clear way. But importantly, make sure you tell it how you want it to be. Like, people talk about prompting, really all that is just making it clear. Like, tell them you are a leading expert in this thing and you're going to guide me on this, and tell it how you want it to interact with you. For me, I had to tell it, hey, make sure you ask me one question at a time, wait for my answer, and then ask me the next question. Otherwise, it gives you 50 questions. It's overwhelming. So tell it exactly how you'd like to interact with it, and then we'll do that. So ChatGPT is super powerful. I think also there's tools we can use. Maybe you've got some deals that you need to promote them and market them. I think videos can be a really powerful way to promote your the deals that you have. Now, the challenge with that is, I'm not a skilled editor. You're probably not a skilled editor. It can take a while to learn that skill set. I don't want to be doing that. But there are tools like Descript, so Descript, and basically you can take your video footage in there, and any talking in it, it will transcribe it. And when it transcribes it, you can then edit the video by cutting out the words that you don't want. So like this episode, no doubt I probably said things like, and and so with Descript, that won't be there anymore, right? We can press that button, they're all gone. And we can put music to it, we can put subtitles to it, and we can do it very quickly. So there are good, marketing tools like that. Look, I think we're also getting to the stage where we can have automations and agents, doing things for us. So there are tools like Make, and then I just forgot the other automation tool a second. It dropped in my head. It will come back in a second. But Make can be very powerful. So Zapier, Make and Zapier, they can actually automate things for you. So you can set up some rules in there, and things can be carried out for you in the background. So if you need to be looking for deals, we can get to the stage, where we start having these pre-automated tools, start going out and messaging people on your behalf, start sifting through and qualifying which deals are appropriate. So all this stuff is coming and is here. So yeah, my recommendation on AI space is lean in, get a bit closer. And if you want to get a copy of the recording of the event I've got coming up this week, just please reach out. I'm more than happy to share it.
Sounds great. And I couldn't agree more around the ChatGPT. One thing I did last night, which is we've just had our wheels refreshed. And I don't know if I actually went to try and read it. And it is so boring and so much legal talk. Like every single time I go try to read a paragraph, my eyes just glaze over it. Same thing happens with superannuation for me. It's just my brain, for some reason, just can't cope with the legal jargon. So I did actually tolerate. I read through the whole thing. It was like 28 pages. And then at the back at 3 pages was around, I guess, more plain English speak around what all the different sections meant. So I did read it, but what I did then is I actually put it into ChatGPT and I said, explain this will to me as if I'm a 10-year-old child, make it really, really simple, and let me know if it's got the coverage so that I can protect my children, I can protect my assets, all that sort of stuff. It came through and goes, okay, based on this, so-and-so this is the order of what's going to happen if whatever, if I fall off the perch or if my husband falls off the perch or whatever. So basically just explained it to me in a really simple way that I could understand. It also said, okay, you're protected if this happens, you're protected if that happens, but you might want to think about these 3 areas here. So for example, ours will convert into a testamentary trust, and, have a think about whether you want that to be lifetime so that you protect the assets for your children and make sure that they go towards the bloodline of your children. So little things like that actually weren't in the will, that I went, okay, yes, that's caught exactly what I was hoping to do. I couldn't understand that by reading that will. And then now I actually feel like, okay, I've now got all the things that I wanted captured in that will to protect my assets, but also to know that when I'm no longer here, that those assets are going to be transferred over in the way that I was hoping for. So, but my brain didn't have the capacity to do that, and to have someone to be able to explain that so simply and then be able to advise me where the gaps were, it was incredible. I couldn't believe it.
So incredible. Yeah, go and pay your $20 a month. It's highly worth it.
Best investment, that's for sure. Okay, so let's get into time leverage. So you've worked with some top global brands. what sort of strategies do they use to scale efficiently that small business owners can apply as well?
There's so many things we could go into on this. There's a whole conversation around leadership and leading. I think these larger brands, they get very skilled at hiring the right people and keeping them engaged, because when a business is at scale, it really becomes about how well you manage people, how well you get them to do the things that need to be done. And so part of that really becomes about putting the right systems and processes in place. So when I worked with larger organizations, so I worked with organizations like Intel Corporation and Hills Hoist here in Australia and Qantas Business Travel. One of the key things that was always required of me as a leader was to identify, well, what is the process here? How do I change this process? How do I streamline it and improve it? And if I can do that in the right way and get a consistent result and put a person on it, great. Because then, of course, me as a leader, I can now have more of an impact on a bigger area, and then I can go and take on bigger tasks and bigger responsibilities. So they get very skilled at putting in systems and processes and empowering others and just making sure they do. Now, one way we can make that relevant for small to medium-sized business owners listening is I'd like you to think about the idea of I call this like the skills and fun matrix. So there's a tool that you can do, and you can map this out, just draw this out. I'd like you to draw like a 3x3 grid. Okay, so you end up with like 9 squares, and across one axis we could put, hey, what's the level of skill that's required to do this task? And on the other axis up the side is what's the level of fun or enjoyment, right? So we've got skill. So we're going to go from low, medium, and high skill in one direction and low, medium, and high fun in the other direction. Now, if you plot all of the tasks that you do in any given day, week, or month onto this grid, it gives a real good visual representation of where your time is being spent and where it should be spent. Because ultimately, we want to move everything you're doing, into an area where it's high skill, as in only you can do it, and it's high fun. You really enjoy it, because that's where you have a maximum profit and maximum fulfillment. But most business owners and people doing deals are stuck down here in the low skill, low fun stuff. They're doing the bits that they can outsource to other people at a low cost, and the bits that they don't enjoy it anyway. So we need to find a way to do that. Now, if you can do that and map that out, I promise you're going to see very clearly what are the first things you need to get off of your plate.
I'm going to do that this afternoon with my husband, because we have operations meeting, and I know that he's doing some tasks that he just cannot stand. And I think by doing that grid, it's going to be really, really helpful for us to be reallocating our tasks. But there's 2 key messages that I took away from there: people and systems. And it's very relevant in property development, because part of the people side of things, even though you may be a solopreneur and be the only developer, you build your A team. Your A team are the ones like your designers, your builders, your real estate agents, your town planners, all those key people. They're your A team. And if you choose the right A team, that's really going to be able to, firstly, they exponentially, they do all the hard work, whereas you get to brief them and then they spend the hours doing things. But you also want to make sure by leveraging the right people, you're going to get a better end result. And then the other thing you mentioned was systems, because in property development, like a lot of things we do in business, once you've done a project, you do this, whether you're doing the first project or the 10th project, it's the same thing. And then what happens, because a typical project might take anywhere from 12 to 18 months, it might be 12 and 18 months before you go into your second deal, if you're not doing deals in parallel. So what I think is really helpful is as you're going through a process, and this is a process that I teach as well, but if you're doing something, just talking to ChatGPT and go, okay, so when I want to go and brief my design, what I do is I email my designer and I tell them how many houses that I want in that block, what sort of square meterage, and whether I want it single story or double story. Create me a standard operating procedure for that. So, and then ChatGPT will spit it out, and then you copy and paste it into a Google document, name it SOP, how to brief the designer. And then next time you come around to doing that task, if it's 12 to 18 months later, you don't have to go, okay, God, what did I do last time? Like, I can't remember the process. And then when you've got it all there, you can just go, okay, that's right. I wrote an SOP for that. And so every time you're doing something, if you do that, it makes things so much simpler. But not only that, it means you might be able to bring on a virtual assistant and go, hey, virtual assistant, here's all the tasks for you to do, and here's how you do it. And that's how you really be able to accelerate your time as well.
Yeah, perfect. And let me add another tool to that then, because there's one called Scribe How. And what you can do, it kind of just sits on your computer, and you can do a process that you know how to do. And as you're doing it, it will document it step by step. It essentially takes a screenshot. It says, click here do this, click here, do this, click here, do this. So then when you do have someone you can hand it over to, it's a very easy step-by-step process that you can hand on to them. And this is great because you do this thing once, it gets recorded once, and then you have your process done as well. So that's another way you can get it done.
I love that. I might have to add that onto my computer, my phone as well.
Do it. It will make a big difference. You'll thank me later, I promise.
Yeah, no, I love any tool that makes things simpler and gives you back time. All right, so let's get into designing a lifestyle you love, because this podcast is about building lifestyle. So if someone wants to build a business that funds their dream lifestyle, where should they actually start?
Let's go back to where we started this conversation. Start with the end in mind. Get very clear on what you want, and do that in the context of not just what you want the business to look like, but do it from the perspective of, hey, here's how I want to be spending my time. Do you want to be traveling, or do you want to be, stay here? Who do you want to have around you? Get clear on the people. How do you want to be contributing? Do you want to be making a difference to other people? How do you want to be growing? Do you need to have time in there for your growth? Here's the other important one, which people most overlook, is what do you want to feel? Because ultimately, everything we're doing at some point is designed to give us a feeling. So are we getting a clear vision of how we want to feel? For me, in my lifestyle, there was a lot of time in my life where I traveled internationally and spoke on international stages, and that was great for a period of time. But now in this season of life, that's a bit tricky. I've got kids that are 6 and 8. It doesn't really make sense for me to disappear overseas for a week, leave my wife with them. So that's certainly not in my lifestyle design. However, if we do trips like that, I make sure it's trips where I can bring my wife and kids with me, because that's part of our lifestyle. So yeah, definitely think from that perspective. What do I want things to look like, and do it from all of those different angles. Relationships, how you want to contribute, how you want to grow, what you want to feel.
I love that you've mentioned about the season of life, because we all do go through such different seasons. I'm in the teenage stage. I've got 3 teenage girls, but I've also got a 17-year-old who's in her last year of school, and to know that they're getting closer to leaving the nest. And so my husband and I are sort of a different season of our life. We're thinking, okay, well, what's our life going to look like at this next phase? And it's exciting but scary at the same time, and thinking I'm not ready for the children to leave the nest. It just goes by so quickly. But I think definitely in terms of where you are with business, so when you are right in the thick of, say, newborn stage, where you're living in like a parallel universe, that's a different season of life to be making different decisions about business and starting something new as well. And that'll evolve. So when you use wealth creation strategies that work quickly, then you're able to catch up if you keep learning and being consistent. But it's very important to also make sure that you are creating that wealth alongside of whatever season you are in life, because if you do have young children, they're going to be gone before you know it. So making sure we're making decisions to be able to cherish that time, rather than being so immersed in work and having no time at all to spend with them. And that was one of the drivers why I started doing property development in the first place, was because I wanted to be around for the kids. So I think that's a really good key message to share.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. We get 18 summers with them. So if that's important to you, you really want to make sure you make the most of it. I saw a meme in the last 24 hours, which made me chuckle on this topic. It said, oh, my wife and I decided we're not going to have kids. And now we just got to go and tell them. It's like, oh. So yeah, just make sure you start with your end in mind, get clear on what you want. And if you have children and that's important. No, hey, look, and it's not for everyone. I see some of the people who have the most successful careers, and we hold them up on a pedestal because they're, leaders. Children, time with their children doesn't really feature, right? They prioritize what they're doing in career. And, hey, if that's their value system and what they want, and I think that's the important piece, we probably need to ask a deeper question. If we're going to design a lifestyle, we're going to ask, well, what do I value? What's important to me? Because if we understand what we value, then we can build our life around that. And if we're not clear on what we value and what's important to us, we'll go back to that, metaphor used before. You're going to get blown around like that, that ship in the ocean without any direction.
Yeah. So, gosh, we seem to have covered, we're talking business, but we've covered a lot of lifestyle there, understanding, what is it that you want, and what are your values around that? How do you want to feel? Asking yourself a question around, what are the big rocks that you need to be focusing on? So we've covered a lot of that. So what's one key message that you'd like the listeners to take away from today? We've covered so much, but if we had to think about one thing that they could take away and implement right away.
I noticed one pattern amongst, all of the entrepreneurs and the property people that I work with, and is this, right? We are constantly looking at all of these things that we haven't done yet, the things that we haven't gotten to yet, and we're constantly beating ourselves up and feeling bad that we haven't done it yet. Whereas the most successful people I've worked with, they have a different approach to this, right? Rather than, looking at all the things they haven't done, they actually praise themselves for the things that they have done. I'll give you a quick example of this. One of my friends is a senior executive at a very large beverage company. And when we were living in the Netherlands, his wife, and he came over, and now the wives were doing something, so they sent us out to play with the kids in the park and go to the supermarket. Now, anyway, I was playing with the kids in the park. He went into the supermarket. Now, he's meant to be 20 minutes, but 30 minutes later, 40 minutes later, he hadn't come out. Like, well, I'll take the kids. I'll go in and find him, see what's going on. Anyway, I don't know about you. If I'd been in the supermarket that long, I'd be getting frustrated. I'd be so annoyed if I couldn't find these things. But he seemed quite happy, quite content. And I went up to him, hey, mate, how you going? Oh, yeah. He went, I got points for this. I got points for this. I got points for this. I said, well, what do you mean you got points? He said, well, I got a point. Like, so everything that he got off the shelf that was on the list, he was giving himself a point, right? So he had a basket full of points. He was feeling great. Whereas I'd be so stressed out about that one thing that I hadn't found. He was giving himself points. And I think this is something that we need to start doing as entrepreneurs. We need to give ourselves points, count the wins, notice the things that we've done today that are, that have really made a difference. And it makes you feel better because you feel that momentum. It brings you back to this, success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. He was feeling successful because he got 19 of the 20 things, and that's what he was focused on. 2 ways you can do that, very quick and easy ways. Number 1, get a journal at the end of every day. Write down what were your wins today. Even in the worst days, you can find wins, things that were great. Number 2, anchor this as something you do anyway. We have dinner with the kids every night. We ask them every night, hey, what was your wins today? What was great? And interestingly, we've been doing it so long now, if we forget to ask them, they ask us, they tell us, what their wins are. Now, I got this from a Harvard psychologist. She said to me, she taught at Harvard Business School, and she said, it's not the point of asking that question there at the dining table. It's the fact that they have to look around all day or all week for what the wins are. So the brain is constantly switched on to that because they know that question's coming later. So anyway, long-winded answer to your question, but count your wins. Start counting your wins. It'll make the biggest difference, I promise you.
I love that. So good. Well, thank you so much for your time, Kevin. There's been so much goodness that we've covered in here and lots of key messages for people to take out of here. And I have no doubt that there's something in here for everybody, depending on where they are at that journey. So thank you for sharing your experience and your knowledge and your time with us as well today.
Hey, entirely my pleasure. I've loved it. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye for now. Thank you so much for listening. This is Building Lifestyles, a show designed to help everyday Australians create a lifestyle that inspires them using property development strategies. This podcast was produced by the Rising Star Developer. We've been helping Australians realise their financial and lifestyle goals since 2020. We play a pivotal role in educating, supporting and celebrating the goals and successes of our students and our community. To find out how we can help you realise your property, wealth and lifestyle goals, head to our website www.risingstardeveloper.com.au. To make sure you don't miss an episode of Building Lifestyles, be sure to subscribe to and follow the show in your favourite podcast app. And while you're there, leave us a 5-star review as it really helps others find the show. I'm Amanda McEwin and we'll be back next episode with more tips on how you can build your lifestyle.